Dr. Hay-Il had been working at the research station Nexus 7 for almost 15 years. The station floated in empty space between stars, far away from any world or civilization. It was a quiet place where scientists from different planets came to study the most important question in the galaxy. What makes a species great? The research station was massive. It had laboratories bigger than cities. Machines filled entire rooms. Computers stored information about thousands of species. And in the center of everything was the DNA reader, a machine so advanced that nobody really understood how it worked anymore. The people who built it had lived thousands of years ago. The DNA reader's job was simple but powerful. Scientists would bring it samples of DNA from different creatures and species. The machine would study the genetic code, analyze the patterns, and then rank the species. It would predict their future. It would tell you how smart they would become. It would tell you how fast they would develop technology. The Galactic Scientific Council used this machine to organize all known intelligent life in the galaxy into a hierarchy. At the very top were the Talvor. Their DNA was perfect. Thousands of years of careful planning had made them almost like gods. Their bodies were made of crystal-like material that could think and feel. They rarely got sick. They lived for thousands of years. The Talvor believed they were the greatest achievement in the galaxy, and the DNA reader agreed with them. Below the Talvor were dozens of other species: the merchant princes, the crystalline collective, the energy beings. Each one had been tested and ranked. Each one knew their place in the order of things. Humans were not on this list. Nobody really cared about humans. Earth was a small blue planet in a remote area of space. Early surveys said humans were still primitive. They had not invented fast space travel. They had not discovered the laws of quantum physics. They were still fighting wars with each other. The Galactic Scientific Council decided that humans were not worth studying. So on this particular day, when Dr. Hay-Il came to work, she expected it to be like any other day. She would review data. She would attend meetings. She would write reports that nobody important would read. But the universe had something different planned. At exactly 9:47 in the station's local time, everything changed. The DNA reader started making a noise that nobody had ever heard before. It was not a normal sound. It was not an alarm or a warning. It was something deeper. The machine groaned like it was in pain. The lights around it flashed red and blue and white. Sparks jumped from one part to another. Dr. Hay-Il looked up from her desk. Her colleague, Park Ji-won, was standing near the machine, trying to understand what was happening. Ji-won was young, only 30 years old, but she was one of the smartest geneticists on the station. She had helped analyze the DNA of 15 different species. "Something is very wrong," Ji-won said. Her voice was shaking. Dr. Hay-Il stood up and walked to the DNA reader. The machine was much taller than a human. It was made of materials that seemed to be both metal and glass at the same time. Screens covered every side, showing information that moved too fast to read. "What sample are we processing?" Hay-Il asked. Ji-won checked her notes. "The blue planet sample. The one from the Orion sector. Earth, the humans. We got it 3 weeks ago, and we finally decided to analyze it. I thought it would be quick and boring." The DNA reader made another horrible noise. This time, the entire machine shook. Some of the older equipment in the lab started to fall from shelves. Hay-Il and Ji-won moved back to a safe distance. Then, as suddenly as it had started, everything stopped. The machine became silent. The lights turned off. The screens went dark. The whole lab seemed to hold its breath. For a moment, nothing happened. Dr. Hay-Il wondered if the machine had broken. That would be a problem. The DNA reader was the most important tool in the entire galaxy for understanding life. If it was broken, the Galactic Scientific Council would not be happy. Then the machine turned back on. But it was different. The lights came back slowly, softly. The screens showed new information. And then the machine did something it had never done before in its entire operation. It spoke. The voice was clear and calm and strong. It sounded like nothing anybody had ever heard. It was not speaking in any language that Dr. Hale recognized, but somehow she understood every word. The voice said something that made both scientists freeze in place. Primary species detected. Earthborn apex. Dr. Hale's heart began to beat very fast. She could not move. She could not speak. G1 was holding her mouth open like she wanted to say something, but could not think of the words. The machine displayed the complete analysis. The DNA of humans was not perfect like the Talvor. It was not refined or engineered. It was messy and wild and full of scars from millions of years of evolution. But the machine's analysis said something that should have been impossible. The humans had potential. Not just normal potential. Not just the kind that any developing species might have. The humans had something that the machine classified as apex. They were at the top. They were the best. Not yet, perhaps. But they had the ability to become the greatest species the galaxy had ever seen. Dr. Hale read the analysis again and again. She could not believe it. How could a species that had not even left their home planet be classified as apex? How could a species that still used fire and metal and oil for energy possibly be at the same level as the Talvor? We need to tell Dr. Kang Min-ho immediately, Ji-won said quietly. He needs to know about this. Dr. Kang Min-ho was the director of Nexus 7. He was older than Hai-il, with gray hair and wise eyes. He had been studying alien species for 40 years. He had never seen anything like this in his entire career. When Hai-il told him what had happened, he did not speak for a long time. He just sat at his desk and stared at the wall. Finally, he said something that would echo through the next 5 years of history. The machine has never been wrong before, he said slowly. If it says the humans are apex, then the galaxy needs to know, and the galaxy will not be happy about it. He was right. He did not know it yet. But the simple classification of one small species from a blue planet called Earth had just started a chain of events that would change everything. Wars would almost happen. Secret plans would be made. Heroes would rise up. And all of it started with a machine that broke and then restarted with 4 simple words. The humans of Earth were still sleeping. They did not know they had been found. They did not know that the stars were watching them. They did not know that their future was about to change forever. But the DNA reader knew. The ancient machine understood something that the proud species of the galaxy did not yet understand. And in a few moments, the quiet research station would become the center of the biggest discovery that the galaxy had ever made. Lieutenant Han Tai-sung was patrolling the edge of human space in a ship called the Swift Arrow. The Swift Arrow was a small ship designed for one person to fly alone. It could go faster than anything else humans had built. It could travel between planets in just a few days. To Tai-sung, it was the most beautiful thing in the universe. Tai-sung had been a pilot for the Earth Defense Force for 12 years. His job was to watch the space around Earth and make sure nothing dangerous came close. He flew patrols around asteroids and past distant moons. He talked to other pilots on other ships. He watched radar screens and sensor readings. It was quiet work. Nothing exciting ever happened out here. Most pilots found it boring. But Tai-sung loved it. He loved the way stars looked when you were far away from any planet. He loved the feeling of flying through empty space. He loved knowing that he was protecting Earth, even if nobody down on the planet knew his name or what he did. On this particular day, Tai-sung was flying near an area of space called the Orion Sector. This was the section of space that humans had not yet explored very much. The Swift Arrow's sensors were sensitive. They could detect ships and signals from very far away. Tai-sung was supposed to check this area once every month to make sure nothing strange was happening. He was listening to music while he flew. The music was from a Korean composer named Minji. The notes were sad and beautiful. They made Tae-sung think about his home, about the city of Seoul where he grew up. He thought about his family. He thought about why he loved flying so much. The computer on the Swift Arrow made a small sound. It was a gentle beep, not an alarm. The computer was telling him that a message was coming in. Tae-sung turned down the music and checked the communication system. The message was strange, very strange. It was encrypted with a code that Tae-sung did not recognize. The code was not from any Earth ship. It was not from any human system. Tae-sung had never seen anything like it before. His first thought was to delete it. Military training told him to be careful about unknown messages. They could be dangerous. They could contain computer viruses. They could be traps. But something inside him wanted to know. What if this message was important? What if this message was something that Earth needed to know about? Tae-sung used a special technique to open the message carefully. He set up a protection system so that if the message was dangerous, it would not hurt his ship's computer. Then he read the message. The message was short. It said, "A threat to your world is coming. You have 4 years to prepare. The specifications to the weapon are attached. Use your ingenuity. It's what you do best." Tae-sung read the message 3 times. Then he read it 4 more times. This was not possible. It could not be real. How could something threaten Earth? How could anyone in space know about Earth? Humans were alone in the galaxy. Scientists had looked for life among the stars for hundreds of years and found nothing. Space was empty. But the message was real, and it was attached to something. The attachment was data. Lots of data, technical data, genetic data, information about something called a bioweapon. Information about a plague that could kill billions of people. Tae-sung's hands began to shake. His heart started to beat very fast. He wanted to think that this was a joke. He wanted to believe that someone on Earth was playing a trick on him. But he knew better. Something about this message felt true. Something deep inside him knew that this was not a joke. He made a decision. He turned the Swift Arrow around and headed back toward Earth. He flew as fast as the ship could go. He thought about the message. He thought about the threat. He thought about what would happen if this was real. Back on Earth, everything was normal. Humans were living their lives. They were going to work. They were eating meals with their families. They were watching movies and reading books. They were playing games and making art. They did not know that a message from the stars had just arrived. They did not know that their world might be in danger. Dr. Yeon-hee was one of the smartest people on Earth. She was a geneticist, which means she studied how living things inherited traits from their parents. She worked at a big hospital in Seoul. She was trying to create medicine that would help people who had rare diseases. Yeon-hee was 35 years old. She had spent her entire adult life studying genetics. She had read thousands of research papers. She had worked in laboratories for 16 years. She loved her work more than anything except her family. Yeon-hee did not know about the message from space. She did not know that her life was about to change forever. She did not know that she would become one of the most important people in human history. She was sitting in her office, looking at genetic sequences on her computer screen. The sequences showed the DNA of a patient with a rare disease. Yeon-hee was trying to find a way to fix the broken genes. She was so focused on her work that she did not even notice when someone knocked on her door. It was Tae-sung. He looked very stressed. He looked like he had not slept in a long time. He looked like he was carrying the weight of the entire world on his shoulders. "Dr. Yeon-hee," he said, "I need to tell you something. I need your help. And I need to tell you that you cannot tell anyone about this. Not yet. Not until we understand what is happening." Yeon-hee stood up from her desk. She could see in Tae-sung's eyes that something was very wrong. She could see that he was frightened, and when she listened to his story, she understood why he was frightened. The message from space was real. The threat was real. A plague was being created somewhere in the galaxy, and Earth had only 4 years to prepare before the plague arrived. The two of them looked at each other. Neither one of them was a military person. Neither one of them was a government official. Neither one of them had ever done anything more important than their regular jobs. But now, in this quiet hospital office, they became the first humans to know about the biggest threat that the human species had ever faced. And they became responsible for making sure that humanity would survive. "We need to start working right now," Yan-He said. "We need to understand this weapon. We need to find a way to stop it. And we need to do it without letting anyone know why." Tae-Sung nodded. For the first time since he had received the message, he felt like there might be hope. He felt like maybe, just maybe, humanity could survive what was coming. Neither of them knew that in a laboratory far away on a space station called Nexus 7, a machine had just classified humans as apex. Neither of them knew that their world was about to become the most important place in the entire galaxy. Neither of them knew how much their actions in the next 4 years would change everything, but they were about to find out. The news about the Earthborn Apex classification spread through the Galactic Scientific Council faster than light could travel. Within 3 days, every important government in the galaxy knew about it. Within 1 week, every powerful faction was making plans. And within 2 weeks, emergency meetings were being called at the highest levels of power. The Talvor were the first to react. They were shocked. They were angry. For thousands of years, they had believed that they were the greatest species in the galaxy. The DNA reader had always agreed with them. The rankings had always put them at the top. But now, some primitive species from a backwater planet had been classified as their equal, or perhaps even more frightening as something better than they were. The Talvor leadership met in a chamber made of pure crystal. The light from their bodies reflected and bounced around the room, creating patterns of color that were beautiful and terrible at the same time. They spoke in a language that had no sounds. They communicated through vibrations in their crystalline bodies. And they expressed anger in ways that made the entire planet tremble. "This is an insult," one of the oldest Talvor said. "The machine has made a mistake. We must shut it down and rebuild it. We must restore the proper order." "But the machine has never been wrong," another one replied. "In all of its history, it has never made an error. If it says the humans are apex, then by the laws of science, it must be true." "Then we must make it false," the first Talvor said. "We must make sure that these humans never become a threat. We must prevent them from developing further. We must stop them before they become powerful enough to challenge us." This was the moment when the Talvor decided to act. And what they decided would change everything. At the same time, across the galaxy, the Galactic Scientific Council held an official meeting. The meeting was held in a space station that floated between stars. Representatives from 100 different species came to listen and to speak. Dr. Hai-Il was asked to present the data about humans to the entire council. She stood in front of thousands of alien beings and showed them what the machine had found. She showed them the analysis of human DNA. She showed them the predictions about human future. She showed them the evidence that humans possessed something called apex potential. Some species listened with interest, some listened with fear, and some, like the Talvor, listened with anger barely hidden beneath their calm faces. An ancient merchant prince stood up and spoke. He was so old that his skin had turned silver. He had lived longer than entire human civilizations had existed. "You are suggesting," he said slowly, "that a primitive species living on a backwater planet has more potential than the Talvor, more potential than the energy beings, more potential than us." Dr. Hai-Il took a deep breath. She was nervous, but she spoke with confidence because the data supported what she was saying. The data shows that humans possess a unique form of genetic flexibility. They can adapt to almost any environment. They can solve problems in unexpected ways. They have overcome many challenges during their evolution, and most importantly, they have something that cannot be measured by normal genetic analysis. They have an unconquerable spirit. They refuse to give up. They refuse to accept defeat. This is poetry, not science, a delegate from the Crystalline Collective said with anger. No, High-Il replied. It is science. The DNA reader has coded this trait as anomaly gamma. It is a genetic marker that predicts behavioral outcomes. When faced with an impossible situation, humans almost always find a way to survive. This is written in their DNA. This is who they are at the most basic level. The meeting continued for many hours. Scientists argued with other scientists. Politicians argued with scientists. Everyone had an opinion. Everyone wanted to decide what should happen with this strange new species. Finally, they voted on a decision. The vote was very close, but in the end, a decision was made. Earth would remain uncontacted for exactly 5 years. During this time, humans would be monitored through hidden observation stations. At the end of 5 years, the Council would meet again and decide what to do with humanity. This is a compromise, the ancient merchant prince said. It keeps Earth safe from those who would do them harm. But it also gives us time to prepare for whatever humanity becomes. Many species were not happy with this decision. The Talvor were especially unhappy. They left the meeting early, their crystal forms flashing with colors that showed their emotions. A young Talvor named Voss watched her people leave. She watched them plan their secret operations, and she began to feel very uncomfortable. Voss had been assigned to work on the Human Research Project. She had studied everything about humans. She had read their books. She had watched their movies. She had learned about their art and music and culture, and over time, something unexpected happened. She began to admire them. She admired how humans created beauty even when they were suffering. She admired how they took care of each other even when resources were limited. She admired how they fought for what they believed in, even when the odds were impossible. She admired how they could laugh and love and create even in the middle of darkness. When Voss learned about the Talvor plan to create a plague and destroy humanity, something broke inside her. She could not accept it. She could not be part of it. She could not watch these amazing creatures be murdered by a weapon designed in secret. So Voss made a decision that would change her life forever. She decided to betray her own people. She decided to help the humans. She decided that doing the right thing was more important than loyalty to her species. Voss stole the blueprints for the weapon. She stole the genetic data. She stole the research that the Talvor had done, and she created an encrypted message. She sent this message into space, hoping that somehow it would reach Earth, hoping that somehow the humans would receive it before the Talvor's plan began. She did not know if humans would even understand the message. She did not know if they would believe it. She did not know if they would be able to prepare in time. All she knew was that she had done what her conscience told her to do. She had chosen to help the species that the DNA reader had called Apex, and now she could only wait and hope that her choice would make a difference. In the hidden Talvor facility on the outer moon, scientists were working on the plague. They were creating something that would be released into Earth's atmosphere. They were creating something that would either kill humans or make them less intelligent. They were creating a tool that would ensure that humanity could never become a threat. But they did not know that someone had stolen their secrets. They did not know that a Talvor had turned against them. They did not know that Earth had received a warning. They were about to learn these things the hard way, and when they did, the real struggle would begin. Dr. Yan He and Lieutenant Tae Sung worked in secret. They could not tell anyone about the plague threat. They could not explain why they needed to work so hard and so fast. They could not let anyone know that the fate of humanity rested on what they did in the next 4 years. The first thing they did was create a very small team. They chose people they could trust completely. Yan He brought in a young assistant named Hai Yun, who was brilliant at organizing information. Tae-sung brought in his best friend from the military, Commander Park Sung-hoon, who could help them keep the project secret and protected. They established a hidden laboratory beneath Seoul, in a place that used to be an old storage facility. Nobody knew about this laboratory. Nobody could find it without special directions. They brought in the most advanced computers they could access secretly. They set up systems to analyze the genetic weapon data that Tae-sung had received from space. The first few weeks were very difficult. The data from space was written in a code that humans had never seen before. The genetic information was structured differently than anything that human science had studied. It took Yeon-hee nearly 2 weeks just to understand how to read the information. But Yeon-hee was brilliant. She spent days and nights studying the data. She filled entire notebooks with calculations and diagrams. She drew pictures showing how the plague would attack human cells. She identified the genetic sequences that the plague would target. And slowly, very slowly, she began to understand. The plague was designed to attack the human immune system. It would make humans unable to fight infections. People would get sick from simple colds and die. Or if the plague was modified slightly, it could attack the human brain and reduce intelligence. The Talvor had created a weapon that was perfect for destroying human civilization without leaving any evidence that they had done it. "But this gives us something," Yeon-hee said after 3 weeks of study. She was so tired that her eyes were red and her voice was hoarse. "If I understand how it attacks, I can create something that blocks it. I can create immunity. I can create a shield." "How long will this take?" Tae-sung asked. 2 years, maybe 3, Yeon-hee said. "If everything goes perfectly, if nothing goes wrong, if we have enough resources and enough time." They had 4 years, so they had just barely enough time. Yeon-hee started working on a genetic therapy. This was medicine that could change human DNA and make it strong enough to resist the plague. She studied how human cells worked. She studied how the immune system protected humans. She studied how other species in the galaxy might have faced similar threats and survived. The work was incredibly difficult. Every day brought new problems. The genetic therapy that worked in the laboratory did not work in living cells. The cells would either die or reject the changes. Every time Yeon-hee found a solution to one problem, 3 new problems appeared. But she did not give up, and she did not work alone. Haeun helped her organize millions of pieces of data. Commander Park helped them keep the project hidden from government inspectors and security people. Tae-sung continued to collect information from space, and he also helped Yeon-hee understand the physics behind the genetic weapon. Other people began to join their team. A brilliant physicist named Kang Tae-ho, who could help them understand quantum mechanics. A biologist named Ryu Min-jun, who specialized in immune systems. A computer expert named Lee Ji-ho, who could process data faster than anyone else. Each person brought their own special skills. Each person was willing to work without sleep and without money. Each person believed in what they were doing, even though they did not fully understand why. By the end of the first year, they had made a breakthrough. Yeon-hee created a genetic therapy that worked. It changed human DNA in a way that made the immune system incredibly strong. It could resist the plague. It could heal injuries faster. It could even improve cognitive function in humans. "This is not just a defense," Yeon-hee said when she announced the breakthrough to the small team. "This is an improvement. This makes humans better than they were before." They decided to start testing the therapy on volunteers. They could not explain exactly why the therapy was needed, but they could say it was a new medical treatment that might help people. They set up centers in different countries around the world. They asked for volunteers who wanted to receive new medicine that might improve their health. Thousands of people volunteered. They received the genetic therapy, and they began to change. Their bodies became stronger. Their minds became faster. Their health improved. Some of them reported feeling more energetic than they had ever felt in their entire lives. The therapy was working. And as it spread through more and more humans, humanity was becoming stronger. Humanity was preparing for the threat that was coming, even if they did not know what the threat actually was. But not everyone was happy about what was happening. The Talvor discovered that their plague had been stolen. They discovered that someone had given the secret to the humans. They discovered that the humans were already preparing to defend themselves. This made them very angry. In the hidden facility on the outer moon, the Talvor leadership met and made a decision. If the humans were already aware of the threat, then they could not wait. They had to release the plague early. They had to act within the next 3 months before humans became too strong to defeat. The plague was loaded onto a ship. The ship was cloaked with technology so advanced that human sensors could not detect it. The ship was filled with the biological weapon. The ship began its journey toward Earth. But what the Talvor did not know was that Voss was still helping the humans. She sent another message to Tae Sung. The message contained the exact location of the plague ship. It contained the coordinates and the trajectory. It gave humans the information they needed to intercept the weapon before it could arrive at Earth. They released it early, Tae Sung told Yeon-hee when he received the message. We have 3 months, maybe less. They know we know about them. Yeon-hee looked at the work they had done. They had accelerated the process as much as they could. They had treated millions of humans with the genetic therapy. They had prepared defenses. They had prepared medicine. They had done everything they could do. Then we finish this, she said simply. We prepare Earth for war with an enemy they do not even know exists. And we make sure that when the plague arrives, it finds a species that can survive it. The clock was running down. 3 months remained. The plague ship was on its way, and humanity, still unaware of the danger they faced, continued their lives. But beneath the surface, in hidden laboratories and secret facilities, the human race was being transformed. Humanity was becoming something new. Humanity was becoming Apex. The 3 months passed like 3 minutes and 3 years at the same time. Time seemed to move in strange ways when you were preparing for the end of the world. Yeon-hee stopped sleeping properly. She would work for 20 hours and then sleep for 4, her body forcing her to rest even though her mind wanted to keep working. She existed in a state between exhaustion and desperate determination. The genetic therapy was now being given to people all over the world. Yeon-hee had worked with government leaders, always telling them partial truths. She told them that a new disease might come from space. She told them that this therapy would protect them. She did not tell them about the Talvor or the plague or the secret war that was being fought in the darkness between stars. The government leaders were suspicious, but they trusted Yeon-hee. She was the most respected scientist in the world. She had won prizes for her work. She had saved thousands of lives. So they did what she asked. They began distributing the therapy to the human population. But Yeon-hee was not just distributing therapy, she was distributing enhancement. Every person who received the treatment became stronger, faster, smarter. The human race was being upgraded without knowing it, and with each person treated, humanity became more capable of surviving what was coming. Commander Park Sung-hoon was organizing the military response. He could not tell the government the true reason, but he convinced them to prepare for an alien attack. He positioned ships in strategic locations around Earth. He prepared defense systems. He trained pilots to respond to threats that most of the world's governments did not believe existed. Tae Sung became the leader of the defense program, even though most of the high-ranking officers did not know why they were following his orders. They knew he was receiving information from somewhere. They knew he knew something they did not. But they also knew that he was always correct. His predictions about where attacks might come from were accurate. His defensive strategies worked. So they followed him. In the hidden laboratory beneath Seoul, the team continued to work. Kang Tai-ho worked on communications, trying to create a way for humans to talk to the aliens who had warned them about the plague. Li Ji-ho processed the data about the plague ship's location and trajectory. Ryu Min-jun created medical responses to different variations of the plague. And Yeon-hee created something more. She realized that if they could understand Talvor genetics, they could do more than just defend. They could create something that would turn the plague into a tool of improvement. The plague that was designed to weaken humans could be transformed into something that would strengthen them. It was an insane idea. It was something that should not be possible. But Yeon-hee was no longer thinking about what was possible. She was thinking about what was necessary. She was thinking about survival. She was thinking about humanity's future. She created a countermeasure. Not just something that would block the plague, but something that would transform it. If the plague arrived and if it was released into the atmosphere as planned, it would encounter millions of humans whose bodies had been prepared. The plague would try to weaken them, but instead it would be converted by human cells into something that would make them even stronger. If this works, Haeun said as she watched the calculations, then we do not just survive. We evolve. If this works, Yeon-hee replied, then we prove what the DNA reader said. We prove that we are Apex. The final week before the plague was supposed to arrive, something unexpected happened. The government found out about the secret project. A minister came to the laboratory with questions. He wanted to know why military resources were being used for genetics research. He wanted to know why entire cities were being given experimental medicine. He wanted answers. Tae-sung and Yeon-hee told him everything. They showed him the message from space. They showed him the analysis of the plague. They showed him the evidence that an alien civilization was planning to attack Earth. They showed him what they had been doing to prepare. The minister sat in silence for a long time. Then he said something that changed everything. "I believe you," he said. "And I will make sure that the highest levels of government know about this. Humanity must be told. We cannot keep this secret anymore. If we are about to be attacked, then the entire world has the right to know." The government called a meeting of every nation's leaders. For the first time, the world learned the truth. An alien civilization was attacking Earth. A deadly plague was coming. But humanity had been preparing. Humans had been getting stronger, and there was a chance, a real chance, that humanity could survive. The reactions were complex. Some nations were angry that they had not been told earlier. Some nations wanted to surrender immediately. Some nations wanted to fight. Some scientists argued that it was all a hoax. But most people, most of the human race, responded with something that would have made the ancient humans proud. They prepared. They worked together. They took the genetic therapy. They trained for defense. They organized. They made plans. They did what humans always did when faced with an impossible challenge. They refused to give up. The plague ship arrived 3 weeks later than the Talvor had predicted. When it appeared in Earth's orbit, it found something unexpected. It found a planet that was ready. It found a species that knew what was coming. It found billions of humans who had been transformed into something stronger, faster, and smarter than they had been before. The plague was released, just as planned. But instead of killing humans or weakening them, something remarkable happened. The plague encountered human cells that had been prepared by Yeon-hee's therapy. The plague tried to attack. The human cells converted it. The plague became a tool for improvement instead of destruction. Humanity did not just survive the plague. Humanity absorbed it. Humanity transformed it. Humanity became stronger because of it. When the Talvor monitored the planet from their hidden facility, they saw something that should not have been possible. They saw that the plague had failed. They saw that humans were not dying. They saw that humans were becoming more powerful. They saw that the attack that was supposed to destroy humanity had instead enhanced it. The Talvor realized what had happened. They realized that Voss had betrayed them. They realized that humans had prepared. They realized that they had made a terrible mistake. They had tried to stop the rise of an apex species, and instead, they had accelerated it. In the laboratory beneath Seoul, Yeon-hee sat back and allowed herself to cry. The tears came from exhaustion and from relief and from the knowledge that she had done something incredible. She had helped save humanity. She had helped transform the human race. But she also knew that this was not the end. This was only the beginning. Humanity had proven that they could survive. Now they would have to prove that they could thrive. They would have to face the galaxy. They would have to become what the DNA reader had called them. They would have to become Apex.